This week we're talking about Xbox achievements, in particular for arcade games, and the idea of spin-offs, all on 3-player co-op. I am Mark.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Mike.
So guys, this week the announcement was that the arcade titles for Xbox achievements would be getting an increase in terms of the points they give. So the initial base level is going to be 400 points up from 200, and then DLC will allow it to go up to 800 points in total. So what do we think of this announcement?
I had never given the number of achievement points in arcade titles any thought. 200, it was the way it was, and it was a nice round number, so I didn't mind. But I guess this is kind of cool. Whatever.
Okay, so I think the first question to ask is why they're increasing the number. And I think it's because achievements sell games. I think Fable 2 was the best example. They said they wanted to have the entire list secret. So every achievement in the game was secret. And they did research and found out that people buy games based on achievements, and the game would suffer if they didn't have a visible achievement list.
Just on that, I hate secret achievements. They're really annoying. They should phrase them cleverly so we can't figure them out. That's all they should do.
I suppose Geometry Wars 2 was the perfect example of what you're talking about there. Like, some of the achievements were a bit cryptic, but you could work them out, like Smile, for example. It's possibly one of the best known, where you had to get a certain pattern on the survival mode just to create a smiley face. And that was an achievement, and it was a brilliant achievement.
I think, and I haven't seen any evidence on this, I would imagine sales for Xbox Live titles might be sagging because they just haven't released anything that's been of massively high profile for a while. Also, if you look at games on Windows Phone, they cost maybe like €2 or €3 or dollars, and they can have 200 achievement points. So you're talking about the number of achievements in something that you play on your phone for 5 minutes being on parity with a live title that might have taken a year to develop and cost a couple of $1 million.
I didn't realize the Windows Phone titles had so many points. That's why they're doing it. They're trying to differentiate as Windows Phone games get more popular.
Now, some people have said that the increase in achievements overall will allow developers to be more creative, but I don't think so. I think if Geometry Wars was pushed to put in an extra 8, 12 achievements, they'd get back to, just score 1 million points, score 2 million points, and then score 3 million points, as opposed to what they have, which is like wax on, wax off, pacifist, and some brilliant ones like that.
Yeah, I completely agree with Mark. I think increasing the amount of achievements that people can put into a title is going to do absolutely nothing for their creativity. I think Bizarre Creations in general were exemplary across the board with their Xbox titles in terms of what they did with achievements. So for Project Gotham 4, they had 5 secret achievements, and one of them was, as far as I remember, it was the registration plate from the car in Back to the Future. And what it required you to do was drive at 88 miles per hour while lightning struck in the background. They're so clever, and they put so much effort in.
We all love clever achievements, especially the ones that are kind of cultural references. They are the best.
So another thing to talk about, I think, here with the achievements and the increase in points for the live titles is escalation in general. So Gears of War 3, through its DLC, is going to become the first disc-based title with DLC to reach 2,000 achievement points, and that's going to happen with the release of the next DLC in April. So that's breaking a new barrier as well. I mean, initially, we had 1,000 points, and you might have had DLC, but it wasn't going to add anything to the game. Then Microsoft brought in a rule where, you could have extra achievement points, and the limit was 1,250. Then they pushed up the limit again, and they change the boundaries every time it suits them.
Yeah, I'm pretty enthusiastic about achievements. They're really cool, and they've sort of changed how I play games quite significantly. I don't consider games completed until I have all of the achievements in them, and that's a little bit insane in some cases.
Well, to go under that logic, I'm only pretty much going to complete arcade titles, so this bumping up of achievements means I'll never complete any games.
Yeah, it's interesting how the definition of completing a game has changed. Like, for me, it's still a case that if I see the end credits of the game, I'm pretty much considering that to be done. I've seen what the game has to offer. I don't feel compelled to collect a bunch of flags in Assassin's Creed. That was ridiculous. What does that add to the game? Really, what does it add?
Literally nothing. I did it, and I went a little bit mad while I did. I guess I just use achievements as an excuse to see just about everything the game has to offer, and occasionally it spirals out of control and I get a bit nuts and obsessive about the game.
But sometimes it isn't what it has to offer, like killing pigeons in Grand Theft Auto. doesn't exactly show you anything.
To be fair, I never actually did that.
Yeah, but okay, like the flags in Assassin's Creed. I mean, you've seen the cities. Getting the flags is adding really nothing.
I don't know. Sometimes just a game just captures my imagination. It's just like, okay, I'm getting the 1,000 in this. In fact, almost across the board, I would have decided, right, I'm going to get the 1,000 or get all of the achievements in this game, no matter what. And it's just like this crazy compulsion. And I wish I didn't have it, because some games just aren't worth my time, and some achievements aren't worth my time. Oh God, help me!
So what are the best and worst ones that you've fully completed?
I guess partially because I'm such a huge fan, Resident Evil 5 was a lot of fun. There was just a lot of challenge in it, especially completing professional. But the achievements weren't particularly clever. I just enjoyed getting them. Okay, I played Spider-Man Friend or Foe, and while it wasn't a terrible game, it was a little repetitive. Thankfully, I have not played Avatar for the whatever 1,000 points in 2 minutes thing, because I realised that would be going a little too far.
But you just get to mash A over and over. How fun! So on the point of achievement love as well, there was a scare midweek where people's scores were reset to 0 after a recent Xbox Live update. How would you react if that had happened to you?
That actually has happened to me a couple of times. I've signed into my profile and seen that my achievement score or my gamer score has reset to 0. Usually it's a case of sign out and sign back in and it'll be fine. And I'm embarrassed to say this, but the last time it reset to 0, I felt relief. My current gamer score is just over 80,000, which, like, there's no two ways to put it. It indicates a disappointing lack of focus on other things than gaming. So yeah, I have a lot of achievements, and I think it's almost spiraling out of control. You know, like I feel like, oh yeah, okay, I can get more achievements, that's great. Whereas when it reset to 0, I thought, whoa, this is a fresh start. I can just not give a crap about these things anymore.
It didn't happen to me, but if it did, I would probably black out and wake up in the hospital.
Blind nerd rage. I mean, like Mike, it's happened to me a couple of times where it resets to 0, but I don't really care about achievements, and I've actually taken to playing with notifications off now because of recording videos and doing video reviews and such.
But that blip and that Pavlovian response it elicits, it's just mad. So, to conclude, I love achievements, and so should you.
In other news this week, assets arrived from Mass Effect 3's cancelled multiplayer. It was originally supposed to be a multiplayer competitively focused title. Standalone, it was supposed to be first person. It was supposed to allow you to battle on foot and in vehicles, similar to Unreal Tournament and Battlefield 3. So what do we think of this? Are we disappointed by the news that Mass Effect 3 wasn't going to get a competitive title and that the assets were instead ported into its current multiplayer phase?
Not at all. I think the Mass Effect series should take place within that trilogy, and okay, there are silly iPad games and all that lark, but they're easy to ignore.
Yeah, I'm also not even remotely disappointed. And unlike Sean, I actually play a lot of competitive multiplayer games online. I don't know, hundreds of hours across the Call of Duty and Battlefield series easily. But no, I think the Mass Effect universe works well with what it has at the moment. Furthermore, I'm really enjoying the cooperative multiplayer in Mass Effect. I spent 2 hours last night alone.
Well, the developers have already hinted that people should hold on to their save titles. This could be a straightforward Mass Effect 4, or it could be a slight spin-off. So what do we think of that? Would it work well as another type of game, or another type of genre?
Okay, speaking as somebody who doesn't play a lot of MMO games, the only MMO game I really spent any time with was Guild Wars, and that was actually free to play and slightly different. I think an MMO would suit the Mass Effect universe really well. So you've got your different planets, you've got your different races. Based on what they've done with the competitive multiplayer, if they transplant a lot of that into an MMO experience, I think it could work really, really well. And I think one of the standout things about Mass Effect in general is the universe and the lore and the amount of effort that BioWare have put into that. The fact that they've already done all of this spade work would translate well into an MMO. Further to that, I think the Mass Effect brand has a lot of currency with gamers. You know, there's a lot of people who would be interested in playing more in this universe. So I haven't finished 3 yet. If it ties things together well, you know, we get a good end to the narrative. I think an MMO is a good logical expansion.
The whole MMO thing, if you look at the KOTOR series, and that went to the Old Republic, And the Old Republic is my first MMO because I loved KOTOR and I wanted a little more. So I could see myself getting into a Mass Effect MMO.
And of course, BioWare have put in the groundwork already in the MMO side of things, so they know what they're doing. They've already shown that they put in a lot of care and work, so it won't be just a case of cashing on a Mass Effect success.
Oh my god, it could turn out that the Old Republic was just a big test bed for the grand Mass Effect MMO, a really expensive test bed.
Could we see the Mass Effect universe working in any other style, like an RTS?
Well, you never know. I mean, who would have thought that Halo would have worked as an RTS? But it did. As it stands, I would prefer that Mass Effect stayed pure, because spin-offs kind of dilute series. The Final Fantasy brand has been kind of tainted by a couple of poor spin-offs. There are a lot of great ones, but people tend to remember the poor ones.
I can't remember the name of the particular Final Fantasy VII spin-off. It was that disastrous one that was based around Vincent.
Oh, that was Dirge of Cerberus.
Dirge of Cerberus, yeah, okay. That was apparently just a bag of crap. Can anybody think of a particularly good spin-off that they thought, you know what, that really added a lot to the universe of that game? I thought that was great.
I loved the City of Final Fantasy. Everything about that said it should have kind of sucked. It was like, oh my god, it's all the Final Fantasy characters and they're fighting. But it was actually a really good, quite an original sort of title, and I played a fair bit of it.
Well, okay, I suppose it depends on the line that you're drawing in terms of spin-off. I mean, technically you could say that most Mario titles are, in terms of Mario Party, Mario Kart, and both of those have been pretty solid. I mean, I've enjoyed them in local multiplayer, passed a lot of good times.
If you consider Mario Kart a spin-off, then it's pretty much the best. Everyone loves it. It's drawn people in. It's a whole social thing that Mario games tend not to be.
And again, at the same time, Mario has also been responsible for pretty poor spin-offs, like the whole Olympic side of things where he races Sonic for some bizarre reason.
Yeah, good old shovelware. Just stick a couple of brand mascots on a box and try and sell it. So most of the things that we've talked about so far, with the exception of the actual introduction, Mass Effect, have been from Japanese development studios.
It would appear that Japanese studios are just more inclined to churn out the old spin-offs between titles. I don't understand why.
Maybe it's just the fact that the Japanese fall in love with brands. I mean, they do have Mario, which is massive, and Nintendo overall, and they're bigger on the whole superstore side of things and spin off into merchandise, and kind of crazy merchandise in some ways. So maybe it is just you can never have too much of a good thing.
You don't want a Mario pillow?
I'd love a Mario pillow.
So would I.
His mustache tickling you.
Despite that, and you're absolutely right, it would appear that the Japanese just love them because they just fall in love with brands. You've got to wonder where they draw the line. I mean, there's really crazy spin-offs like Metal Gear Acid, which bears no resemblance to the main series. I mean, okay, there's a character called Solid Snake, but it's set in some sort of a mad alternate universe, and it's a card collecting game.
Okay, so you've also got Pokemon Coliseum, which took two of the best parts of the main series, which was exploration and gathering all your Pokemon, and just threw them away.
Unfortunately, it was all very shallow. I was really enthusiastic about it at the time, but looking back, God. As it happens, one of the weirder ones, Pokemon Snap, was a decent game. But unfortunately, every so often, spin-off will kind of capture my imagination. I'm quite enthusiastic to play Operation Raccoon City because you return to Raccoon City in it, and that's like the classic Resident Evil setting.
I think what Sean has said there is exactly the reason that they make these spin-off games. Like, I know there's been a couple of games that I've played purely because of, you know, the universe it's been set in. If it was a generic version of a similar game, I probably wouldn't play it. In terms of other spin-offs, there was a Shenmue Online weird type game that was I think it only ever really took off in Asia, and I remember being brutally disappointed. So I loved Shenmue, I loved Shenmue 2, really wanted to see where the story was going, and they decided to use the IP to make a really crappy online game that no one gave a hoot about.
Yeah, the Facebook games, oh, how tiresome. No one is really that interested. They're essentially marketing tools. They're not real spin-offs. How many people played the Dragon Age Facebook game? I mean, that gave you special items in Dragon Age 2. Meh.
I had no interest in Dragon Age 2, so the lure of special items meant nothing for me. If I knew that playing, I don't know, a Mass Effect 3 game on Facebook would get me a bunch of Mass Effect 3 items, I'd probably play that.
Certain games that Facebook isn't going to work for, But The Sims Social has been massively popular, and it's pretty much tying the target market of its console and PC releases with people who are on Facebook, a lot of the day.
Yeah, The Sims is a good fit for Facebook gaming. You just got to be careful with spin-offs and make sure that they're lovingly crafted and offer something quite different to the main series.
Okay, that's it for this week, guys. Thanks very much for tuning in. As always, catch us again next week